Historic Martin House Farm is located 30 minutes southwest of Taunton, just off Route 6 in Swansea, Massachusetts. Swansea was established in 1667 as part of Plymouth Colony. It was bounded by Taunton, Rehoboth, and Mount Hope Bay, and the mouth of the Taunton River. As the boundaries changed, parts of Swansea became what are now Barrington and Warren, Rhode Island. The Martin House Farm is a rare remaining example of an 18th and 19th century farm. The house, 2 barns, and cultivated fields were lived in and worked by members of the Martin family for 200 years. Martin House Farm was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979. Today, it is owned and cared for by the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America.
I'm Andrea Sahin. I'm the former president of the Massachusetts Colonial Dames. Welcome here to Martin House Farm, which is one of 3 Dames properties in Massachusetts. The Massachusetts Dames are part of a broader group of state societies across the country whose mission is to preserve American history, patriotism, and love of country. Martin House Farm was acquired by the Colonial Dames in the early 1930s through a bequest of a former Martin family member, Susan Taber Allien. And we have maintained and opened the house to the public since then. So one of the goals of the Massachusetts Dames is preservation, as is the goal throughout the nation. We preserve 3 properties, and this particular house, built in 1728, has had a lot of preservation work over the years, as you can well imagine. A recent grant through the town of Swansea enabled us to redo many of the ceilings in the house, many of the walls, and upgrade some of the paint colors to match the original paint colors. So preservation is part of our DNA, and we are thrilled to share the property with the public. We're open seasonally in the summer on Sundays from 1 to 4 p.m. And we have a wonderful living history program that enables us to use high school docents to tour our visitors and welcome everyone to the farm.
I'm Diana Grady. My role with the house is to be the instructor for the docent training program. We train high school students to be docents for the house, not only during the summer, but also primarily for the 5th graders from Swansea schools who come to visit in the fall. And the docents are the tour guides. This land was bought in 1715 by John Martin. In 1728, his son came and built the house on the property. What you're in is the original 1-room house that was used by the Martins for John Martin the younger, his wife, and 8 children. One thing that we mentioned during the tours is that we have the original 3 center beams, which are now covered, but they're 1, 2, 3. You can also see the original summer beam up here in, we used to have the loft. Some of the remarkable things that we tell the children during the tours. First of all, we have an original Martin family Bible. It was donated by a member of the Martin family in the early 1800s. There is also in the kitchen an original Martin musket over the fireplace. And we also have what I discovered the other day. It is an original 18th century mousetrap in the kitchen. One of my favorite parts of the tour, and because we have many artifacts. Artifacts were collected by Susan Martin Allien, and one that she collected is an original courting candle. And the courting candle was very special because when a girl was courting, She would invite her boyfriend to come, and the boyfriend would sit in one chair, the daughter would sit in one chair, and the father would sit in between. The father would set the courting candle. If he liked the boy, he would set it high so that it would take longer to burn, because when it burned down, the boy had to leave. If he didn't like the boy, he would lower it so that it did not have as much time on it. So we have many interesting artifacts. We have a loom, we have a flax wheel, and many other interesting things that people will see if they come to tour the house. The tour proceeds through the parlor, which you are in now, into the full tester bedroom, which was the original addition to the house. It was a lean-to. From there, they go into the half tester bedroom and then into the kitchen. From the kitchen, they can go upstairs, which is the so-called more modern part of the house. This was built in the late 1700s into the early 1800s. And the last stop is in the loom room, where they learn about shearing the sheep and cleaning the wool, using the spinning wheel, and then using the loom. This is the kitchen, which was added onto, and we have a number of artifacts that would show both visitors and the children that come for the tours. This is a trencher, which was used to hold the food, and the family would eat out of the trencher. We have a mortar and pestle, which was used to grind corn or herbs and things like that. We have a candle maker. We do demonstrate the churn, the butter churn, and the students do get a chance to actually churn the butter. One of the interesting pieces are the gourds. The gourds were used as water bottles or cider bottles by the farmers taking them out into the field. And these are an interesting piece because they're gourds, they're dry, and they're baby rattles. They believed in using everything. They did not like to throw anything away. Another interesting piece is the gunpowder tea. Gunpowder tea was made in order for them not to have to buy the king's tea. So one thing we like to do in the student tours is actually not only the living history, but also language. And the gunpowder tea is used to teach them about the expression called sweet tooth. When they drank the gunpowder tea, it was very, very bitter. So they would take a piece of sugar, put it behind their tooth, and then drink the tea. And that's where we got the expression sweet tooth. One item we had is called the foot warmer. On Sundays, church was an all-day affair, and during the winter, of course, it would get very cold because the churches did not have heating systems. So they would put coals in the foot warmer, and they would take it to church and use it to keep their feet warm during long services. On the mantle, we have cow horns to hold powder for the guns. Above the mantle, we have the Martin family musket. It was up high so that the children could not reach it. Only the father or the oldest son would be able to reach the musket. These are called Betty lamps, and Betty lamps were used as a very inexpensive way of providing light. They would put straw in the bottom, and then they would put, they'd have oil, and then they would use straw as a wick. And they could just have it as a very inexpensive way of providing light. This is the loom room. This was the last room added onto the house. Again, the house was completed by the early 1800s and remains basically the same since then. The children and visitors come in and they learn about the process of providing cloth for the family. And what we have here is wool from sheep. They would shear the sheep in the spring and then bring the sheared wool in and wash it, clean it, and put it on the spinning wheel. This is an example of a walking wheel that would have been used. Once we have the yarn from the spinning wheel, it can go onto the loom. And probably the older boy would use the loom, or the father, possibly the woman. And the Martins were a family of weavers when they came over from England, so this fits very well in with their history. We do have a woman who comes in and demonstrates the loom. Her name is Nan Zenner. She is from Rehoboth, and she has trained many of the docents to actually use the loom, so the docents can also provide a demonstration of the loom during the tours in the summer. Okay, this is the Empire bedroom on the second floor. And there are a couple of interesting stories that go with this room. First of all, we have a screen. And the screen was used to protect women sitting in the rocking chair from the fire in the fireplace. There was a main reason for that. The women used to wear white wax makeup for two reasons. One was because it made them look as if they didn't work in the fields. They were much higher in society than that. The second reason was that they might have had smallpox and they would have scars, and the white makeup would cover those scars. So the screen was used to protect the woman's face, the wax makeup, from the fire in the fireplace so that it wouldn't melt. This is a pincushion, and this was a gift that might have been given to a girl at a wedding shower. However, the gift was not the pincushion. The gift was the pins. The pincushion could be made by the women of the family, but the pins had to be bought. They had come over from England, so they were more expensive. So the actual gift was the pins. The fifth grade tours that are done in the fall are part of the Swansea history curriculum. And the students, after they have toured the first floor of the house, are going to come up to the second floor, which we're on now. Before they leave the kitchen, they are asked to count 10 years for every stair that they climb. And when they get to the top of the stairs, to ask how many years have passed. And the answer is 100 years. The first thing they're shown is the portrait of George Washington. And they're asked, since we are now in the early 1800s, why would George Washington's portrait be there? When they were in the half-tester bedroom, they saw portraits of King George and Queen Charlotte and knew that at that time, America was under the auspices of the English. And King George and Queen Charlotte were the sovereigns. When they come up the stairs, 100 years has passed. What event has happened in between? And from their knowledge of history, they know it was the American Revolution, and therefore a portrait of the first president, George Washington, would be most appropriate.
Martin House Farm was built in a series of stages. The original house, as we discussed earlier, dates to 1728 and was a one-room building with a loft above. Subsequent additions were put onto the house through the 18th century, and since the late 18th century, the house has remained pretty much as is. When Susan Allien inhabited the house. She lived here before she bequeathed it to the Dames. And when we received it, there was quite a bit of preservation work to do. Slowly but surely, we have been restoring the house, and currently we have a number of projects that have either just been completed or are on the docket to be done. We're standing here in the Loom room, and we recently redid the ceilings here, redid the walls, and following some paint analysis, picked colors for this space. Swansea has been incredibly generous through their Community Preservation Act funding, which is something available to all Massachusetts towns, assuming that the individual town has voted in putting pre-tax dollars or their tax dollars into this fund to support historic preservation, open space preservation, and affordable housing. It's a wonderful resource for historic preservation projects. So Swansea initially gave us a grant about 5 years ago, and that grant took care of this room, our parlor, restoring several ceilings in the house, and repainting much of the woodwork. So we've been very, very pleased to be able to open the house in 2022. We've been closed for 3 years due to the pandemic, and we're welcoming back people, and we have this fresh new look here at Martin House, which is wonderful. We have some ongoing preservation projects that we will get to next year. We have some additional funding through Swansea to do some work, much needed work, on our 2 historic barns on the property. One, a stone barn, where we have our agricultural equipment and do some public programming with our children and visitors, and a hay barn. Those barns need a little bit of TLC. Their windows have been deteriorated. Painting needs to be done, so we're really looking forward to addressing those projects. We've got stone wall maintenance to do. There's always something. It's an ongoing challenge to support the property, and we are excited about the opportunities when we have grants to do work, and we look forward to continuing to preserve the property, restore the collections, and welcome visitors.
I'm Sue Butler, and I'm chair of the committee of Martin House Farm, and I work closely with Andrea and Diana. And my concern for all my projects is sustainability. Land and forests are the strongest way that we can restore climate stability and really regenerate the environment. The majority of the land here is woods. There are also about 10 acres of fields that the Clegg family farms, and we donate our produce to Hope's Harvest, and it goes to food pantries. I've planted some native pollinators, and I think that's going to be an increasing project, adding native pollinators to really support the insect population here, which in turn supports the bird population, which is important. In 2019, the Cleggs and I decided we would stop using glyphosate because it's extremely toxic, carcinogenic, and we have not used any since 2019, which I'm very relieved about. There are several people who talk with me about brainstorming how to optimally protect the forests and care for the land, and it's going to become an increasing teaching project as we go forward.
Sundays until pretty much the end of September. And we have a variety of programs that we run through the summer. Our big event this summer will be on July 10th, where we welcome members of the Swansea community to a big open house here at the property. And subsequently through the summer season, we have events, storytelling, cider making, any numbers of special programs that we encourage people to attend.